Production pay this week. We're talking to Trevor Myers. Guy runs a 5-person accounting firm, which is on the smaller end of the spectrum for all the production pay firms we've talked with. If you thought that production pay was just a big firm thing, well, let me just blow right through that assumption for you with this conversation today. This was a good one. I think you'll like it. Come on in. So without further ado, let's talk with Trevor Myers. Okay, let's get into it. Got Trevor Myers here. Trevor, for people that have not bumped into you into the wild on social, whatever, what's the 30-second Trevor Myers intro?
Well, CPA bean counter, we like to focus primarily on tax advisory and planning. We obviously have, a core list of clients that we like to try to do more with. I always try to say we try to be an inch wide and a mile deep. So we really focus on tax advisory, growing out our team locally here. And within this particular kind of industry, we really focus on construction and within the medical field, within optometry and ophthalmology, kind of separate little worlds, but a lot of the tax planning strategies seem to go hand in hand with a lot of those client groups.
That's interesting. How did you stumble into those specializations?
Well, the construction specialization came from just like referral groups that we have, just colleagues and people across the industry, knowing that really they came to us for tax planning. Within ophthalmology, it really came from kind of a top line godfather. I like to kind of refer to him internally. We had one client that we've been working with forever. He actually was a prior client of my previous firm. And he was just always generous with his referrals. We did a lot of good tax planning for him across those years, and then it just kind of trickled down, snowball effect from there, and then word got out. So we have eyeballs in construction for whatever reason, but we seem to like it and do it pretty well.
Yeah, those go hand in hand. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
how big did you say the squad was, the team?
Got a team of 5, and then we got a couple seasonal folks as well when we need to tap on those shoulders.
Okay, cool. That's like a whole bunch of people listening to this are going to be like, "Oh, that feels like me." So, this week, talking production pay, I put out the call, and several people pointed to you. Interesting to me, you're running about a 5-person shop. We've heard from a number of other people this week who are like running maybe slightly bigger shops, and folks with a smaller team may be like, I don't know if this is if this is for me or not. For you, I guess let's go back to the beginning of contextualizing. Why did you start doing this? What were you trying to achieve with kind of the V1?
Well, V1 originally started with me, so all of my pay was production based for the
Yeah,
most part.
yeah.
But really, what it was I wanted to try to find as we grew out the team. I wanted to do something that I would have wanted as a staff person. So, certain people, that are either rainmakers or want to hustle or that kind of thing, they're going to get rewarded accordingly. But my main thing was I wanted to reward the right type of behavior. I wanted to reward production output because in my overall, the client doesn't care how long something takes to get done. They just care about the deliverable. So I want to reward on the deliverable. And then if we design our practice around efficiency and doing, our SOPs properly where we can have good projects and good margins, I don't care how long it takes. So it eliminates timesheet manipulation. It eliminates the fear of eating time. It eliminates the fear of our production ratios and all of those things like that. And so if someone wants to go out there and crush it, they're going to get paid really well. And then it's our job as a firm to hopefully feed them work that's going to help them do that. So really kind of have this entrepreneur mindset, and they have, they have a piece of all the action really in everything they touch here in the firm. So it rewards efficiency and it rewards output.
What was the very beginnings of that calculation when you brought your first couple hires in? What did that look like?
Yeah, so we've ranged for the most part between 35 and 40% of gross billables. So, and then we're factoring in. So we value bill everything that we've always done, but we still track time kind of old-fashioned way, and I do that just because of this metric. So that factors in write-ups and write-downs. It factors in, all of the above. So if something takes an hour, we get to bill $1,000 for it, then our effective rate's $1,000. Pretty simple. And if I'm paying you $50 an hour in normal pay, you're going to get a massive write-up, and you're going to ultimately get 40% of that. So the 40% seemed to land pretty good. I flirted with 35 to 40% overall. I'd rather overpay than underpay, if I'm being honest. I think if it all works out, I'd rather take over, extra care of my employees than And if that somehow, if our margins get cut down as a firm level, software costs go up, things like that, we might have to reevaluate that. But so far, it's worked out really well for my team, and I've been pretty happy with it as well.
Like the notion of your compensation being tied closer to your outputs definitely attracted to a certain type of person. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, you and I were probably both that, where we're like outperforming the people around us, and the hours in a chair just feel super arbitrary. So you can definitely see how that setup is appealing to a specific type of person. You said like the rainmaker, or the real kind of go getter. What are there any risks to that? Like the fact that you're designing a system that is so explicitly tied to output, to where maybe some of the other stuff gets forgotten, or some of the softer things are pushed by the wayside if it creates this sort of entirely production obsessed culture?
Yeah, no, that's been a fear. We haven't run across it yet, just because I think as long as we're distributing work out in a meaningful way with capacity planning and things like that. Obviously, some people are going to get better projects, some people are going to get worse. Sometimes we don't know, especially with new clients. So we really try to take into account, especially as the staff goes into evaluating those relationships, and we kind of have our annual evaluation on where are we at with our clients. Are we priced fairly? Should we let them go? Having our PETA awards or whatever you want to refer to them as. But inevitably, it's possible. I can't doubt it. If we had a team of 20 and it came super cutthroat, we try to leave most of the administrative tasks to our operational team, so that way we can really keep our professional staff within a focused kind of group all day. Inevitably, though, I think with advisory, sometimes it just the work takes what the works takes. So even though we have kind of a planned scope, sometimes their projects are going to take longer. I do believe the law of averages is going to ultimately take care of itself. And so we kind of have to have a little bit of like grace and discretion where, hey, team member one really got a home run on that deal. This is the easiest cake client of all time as far as like, as far as a need and a lift.
Mhm.
Yet team person two, really got a headache on this one. And so we try to distribute it out where we can. And then we'll evaluate it all. So like the advisory team tries to really, it seems like, hey, if I had to write down on this case, we might try to write up on those cases. So the idea of write up and write down is really where we try to make things a little more level. So inevitably it's kind of discretionary based on me. So I'll admit there, but it hasn't created an environment of like cutthroatness or anything like that as of now. So we try to hire based on that too, right? We want entrepreneurs, we want really outgoing, we want people who are active, but at the same time, we try to make sure we're cultivating a good culture where it's more of a team approach across the board, so we can all lift each other up.
Yeah, what members of the team are production pay? Because I assume 100% of them aren't. Like, what's the
There's
divide there?
there's one that's not, and then so the rest of the team is production pay.
Is there any complication if it's like, I don't know, 80% of a person's role being production, 20% being something else? Does that push more of the non-production stuff to you potentially?
It has. Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. It has. So I end up doing a lot more operations and a lot more administration. As the team has grown, I've stepped way more out of production and I'm much more in more of a management role. So that's something that we're definitely evaluating right now, trying to improve upon, possibly hiring in like a sales coordinator, like a sales slash operational person, a COO. That's definitely kind of our thought process moving forward, just because I can't do all things perfectly, or I can't do all things efficiently. I either have to let the operations go or I have to continue, trying to cultivate the team. So that has happened, and so, but part of it too is I think as the team becomes more stepping in, as their team grows and they're managing, lower level staff, they'll start to have some of that ownership and realize it's just part of kind of what we have to do in terms of managing the client relationships. But right now it's falling on me.
Is that a positive or a bad thing? Because a lot of people, I mean, the age old thing is getting out of the client work. And in some ways, that like barges you out, because everybody, maybe hoarding production is too extreme a phrase, but there's a degree of that, right?
Yeah, I think it's looking at the bigger picture. So being able, near term for us as we grew quite quickly. And so we were definitely understaffed, heavily understaffed, where I mean we were working crazy hours. Me as as the firm runner was working crazy hours. So we grew out, and then some of it's just because of like learning, kind of they still got the training wheels on in some cases. So our most senior staff, our kind of our manager, she's handling more of the training with the other staff and doing all of those other things. But yeah, no, there's always that sunk time. But again, I think of if we're pricing our engagements right, we understand that there's going to be a level of administration that goes along with, especially on our tax planning engagements. Kind of walking alongside the client, making sure they understand the processes and the steps. It's kind of a coaching exercise for the most part, and we still bill it. We still bill it out. We still track our time on that. And again, I think because we're pricing our engagement so well, and because I think we are doing that, work that clients see value in, inevitably some of that I'll call it that sunk time really doesn't seem to play out within the calculation because it's pretty nominal. And then our operational team's really trying to handle more of our day to day with all the administrative tasks. So really, our staff is almost entirely production during the day. Now they'll have a few, I guess, normally what an administrator could handle, but they're doing it because they're kind of the team lead on that particular project. So the client wants them to go through it. So and then I've been able to kind of get more out of the way as the team has continued to mature. So at first it was all fell on me. So I got out of production, went into a lot more operations administration. But then as the team has matured, it's been backed over to them. So I think part of it's just that take a step back so you can take two steps forward.
So just on a very practical example, yeah, $1,000 tax return goes through the firm. What are the ways that that gets split up? Are there levels to the allocations to multiple people? Is it pinned to a specific person? How does that work?
Yeah, because the team being five, we don't have like a hierarchy where we have staff one, staff two, manager, senior, like so on and so forth. So it's pretty much I'm going to be review. This will be the first year where we'll have our manager reviewing returns more than just myself. But really, it's only one or two touch points. So we've invested in some of the systems like Soroban in order to help with the intake process to lower our touch point from an administrative standpoint. So really, we should be able to kickstart the engagement. Whoever's in charge of that client will take a step and will start working on the tax return. There'll be a serious level of review, either by me or my manager, and then ultimately the delivery process. The last mile of the return's pretty quick, so the touch point's pretty low. So our administrator will bill her time on there. We do have a rate of applicable for her. Obviously, the staff who's working on the return, and then whatever my review is, and then depending on if the $1,000 example, if we have $500 of WIP, then we've got a $500 potential write up, and then I prorate that based on overall WIP. So if someone worked on it, if I touched it for 5 minutes, I'm not writing myself up very much. If a staff, did 98% of the work, they're going to get 98% of the write up. So that's kind of typically how we handle it, and so it typically works well. And there are some cases, frankly, where we have to write down. There's some cases where the write up's nominal, but again, I think that law of averages really is what I'm banking on that, but it hasn't failed me yet, because if we're looking at a scope of 2,000 hours over the course of a year, you're always going to have a little bit of give and take. But if we're pricing our engagements properly, we should win way more times than we'll ever come out, even. We've never lost, but at worst, we'll come out square on a particular project. And then we'll reevaluate that going forward. If it ends up being a bigger engagement, then we'll reevaluate it, reprice it, and re-engage moving forward on a renewal.
This episode is sponsored in part by the fine folks at LiveFlow. Are you ready to spice up that reporting that you put in front of your clients? Of course you are, because you know what your client says when you send them just the balance sheet and P&L out of QuickBooks? I mean, they look at that thing and they're going, like, how in the William H. Macy am I supposed to extract anything valuable from this? LiveFlow, I mean, the first thing they brought to accountants was kind of the QBO and Zero connector to your Google Sheets or your Excel, because in a spreadsheet, you have the ultimate flexibility to present that stuff however you want to. Well, now they've got like super simplified online dashboards where that same simple connection to all of your clients' ledgers Gives you just a super straightforward way to build financial dashboards that can be as basic or as sweaty as you want them to be. And you can actually call out the stuff that your client wants to see, the information they'll actually use, and it'll pull all that data in from the accounting file automatically. Do a one-time sync, have it update on like an ongoing basis automatically. As long as the books are up to date, the reporting's gonna be up to date too. It's pretty cool. Learn more about LifeFlow down at the link in the show notes. This episode is sponsored in part by TeamUp. Hello, sir or madam. I would like to discuss with you an opportunity to use our vast accounting staffing resources with expertise that is vast and world leading. Signed, every DM that I get on LinkedIn. It is like, peak offshoring, outbound, inbound. Accountants are inundated with everybody and their mom offering some sort of offshore solution for getting accounting work done. If only it were such a nice, easy silver bullet, right? Here's the thing, gang. I don't know how to make heads or tails of virtually any of it, but what I do know is that there are two groups that were heavily recommended to me and are the only two groups that I run sponsorships for. And we continue to run sponsorships for them because we're sending a bunch of people to them, like it is working. That's why these companies continue to buy ads on my channel. And so very often I run into listeners who use these services, and I stop and I say, how was it? Was it good? Was it bad? Tell me everything about it. And we continue to run sponsorships for these groups because they're good, because people are having really good success with them. TeamUp, what they do really, really well, they help you find talented accountants in the Philippines that you work with directly. No middleman, no ongoing fees, no, like the way I did it back in the day in my firm, I was actually paying a group and almost half of my monthly payments were going to the group, not going to the individual. So if you want to work with these super talented people directly, get on the horn with TeamUp. They've got recruiterments on the ground in the Philippines. They'll find you some really good people. Learn more, check out the link down in the show notes. So is it simply allocated according to time input by various team members? Because I'm thinking of like a scenario where maybe you reviewed it last year and then a manager reviews it the next year. Like whatever allocation was going to you previously, presumably then would be going to the manager.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's kind of the plan so far. So when we've been able to kind of test case that so far, that's how it's gone. And so I'll end up having a touch point on it pretty minimally, but I try to reward who's working on the engagement. But there are higher level engagements that I'm able to focus on more. And when we're doing more advisory, more consulting, and those kinds of things. So kind of my time is spent working on those engagements where more of our compliance only engagements, the write-up is going to go kind of to the manager and the staff in those cases. Mm-hmm.
You talked about the write-up going to it. Do they have like a base pay and then it's just net write-ups that get paid out?
It's write-ups and write-downs. It's both. It's both. So
Okay.
yeah, we have a salary. It's base pay, salary. Normal 80 hours a week. We do unlimited vacation. We don't track time off in that way. We kind of just do because again, if it's based on production, that's kind of how it goes. So that's kind of how we treat just time off. And so whenever we do biannual reviews, so we'll do a review in like January, late December, and then we'll do another one post-tax season. So typically the bonuses are going to be much larger post-tax season. And I do that because some of the work, obviously in the first, second quarter, highly productive, highly, way better margins, tax compliance, all that kind of stuff. And then our work that we're doing in the second half of the fall is primarily advisory or a little bit of accounting services or something like that. Higher touch, lower margin, still good work, but typically our bonuses are going to be really, really good in the mid-year. And so we do that just so we don't punish people for like the whole year kind of evaluation because we know they're going to hit home runs the first and second quarter. Our third and fourth quarter, we should be doing really well as well, but those bonuses may be smaller in nature, and we kind of evaluate that way. But it's net write-ups and write-downs. So so far we don't have a lot of write-ups, and then when we have new staff too, we have like a 90-day period because there takes some time to kind of get in the flow and understand this change. We've had a lot of like people where some of the new staff have come in with this change of mindset, and it's kind of confusing for them because it's like, wait, so I don't have to I put my time on it, and I don't have to to eat it, or I don't, and hey, you put 4 hours on this project. Did it really take you four? No, it just, that's what the budget allocation was. I was like,
Mm.
I don't care what the budget allocation was. I care how long it took you. If it took you five, tell me it took you five. So that way we can understand and grow from there. Yeah, there'll be a little bit of a write down, but if it took you one, tell me it took you one, because I don't care about the timesheet. I care about, ultimately what it's taking to actually get the job done. So, but yeah, we do both net write up and write down. But if I'm doing my job correctly, we don't have a lot of those write downs. Sometimes we'll have to take a bath on a client or on a particular project. But again, we'll try to make up for that. And I sit staff down. I'll say, hey, we had to write this one off bad. I underquoted it, or I underpriced this. That's on me. We'll reevaluate that, but I'll make it up for you on this project here where we're going to get those write ups. So I kind of I kind of keep a working kind of living document where we're tracking those things. So I'm trying to be fair, because I think in the past some people can, if the only way, if I just write myself up and I don't give them the credit for it, then they're never going to continue evolving up. So the whoever has the pin kind of controls the destiny. And so I've seen partners do that, at the staff's detriment.
Yeah.
And I just never wanted to be that person. So I wanted to make this what I would have wanted to see whenever I was the staff, knowing that I was trying to crush it, or I was trying to work harder, trying to get better projects, trying to get higher level projects. So I tried to take that into consideration. So far, that's what we're doing.
Is everybody's base pay, is that market, or is it something else because there's a commission element?
I think it's actually slightly above market just because we're a smaller firm. We're definitely at market, maybe slightly above. I'm willing to overpay just because of the size. We're not built for someone straight out of college, intern, staff one level. I need someone who knows how to work.
Mm.
Because we just don't have the same level of hierarchy that a larger firm would have. So we're typically looking for people who are at that senior level, or slightly above. So typically, I need people who know how to work, know how to learn, know how to figure things out, and then ultimately kind of plug them into our system. Yeah, that's how we kind of have worked with that.
I think everybody's fear when they're considering something like this is the scenario where people have to go backwards, or where you have to make a change to the calculation that hurts somebody. Do you have an expectation in the scenario where somebody gets, maybe it's most likely in Q3 and Q4. Somebody gets to the end of Q3 and Q4 and they've got net write downs. And is there an expectation there of what that means? Does that roll forward? I assume somebody's not cutting you a check. Like, how do you handle something like that?
Yeah, I get my grass mowed for free at that point.
Yeah.
No, we haven't run across it yet, in all honesty. So there is the expectation that we might. And so what I'm really upfront with staff, especially upon all of our new hires, is we'll have two. If we have 2 periods of net write downs, then we really need to reevaluate. Either your base pay is off, either I'm giving you bad projects, I'm not putting you in a position where you can win. The real thing is I want to put in terms of baseball, I want to put people in positions where they're going to get on base. And if we're not getting on base, then something's happening, I think, at the manager level, which is going to be me or whoever's ultimately managing that staff. So 2 periods in a row, two semi-annual reviews in a row. But typically too is we can start to see on a month over month, if we're definitely seeing that trend, then I think we either need to evaluate, either they're not fit, maybe they were overpromised on maybe I mishired, but obviously I don't want to have to go into that. So we try to do our hiring process. We're really looking for, we're looking for people who are seasoned. We're really looking for personality types. So admittingly, I'm not just taking any resume off the street that they have the right check, boxes checked off on the resume. We're looking for kind of personality types, people who are lifelong learners, people who are, wanting to challenge themselves. So, but to answer the question, we haven't had two periods of a row of a net write down. Obviously, I'm not lowering anybody's pay. We just don't go up. So if you get a bonus, like on the other side, if you get a bonus, we up your base pay. We
Oh,
reset. We up your base pay. Sorry, we didn't even talk about that. So we up your base pay. We kind of reset hourly billing rate, and then now we now we have another goal to hit, and then we go forward there. So in those cases, if you crush it one year, then you're going to get a massive increase, obviously in the bonus, but then additionally on the on the base pay, and then your hourly rate probably increase. Then we keep going forward and keep going forward and keep going forward. So there's always, we're kind of moving the goalpost to a certain degree, or kind of keeping that carrot hanging out in front of you, trying to chase after something so you don't get complacent. And then we should be getting more and more, projects, and you should be coming into more roles where you're doing higher margin work.
I had a partner back in the day that did all sorts of silly games on their write ups relative to like they'd come in inside and they return for a tenth of an hour and they got the write up and the staff didn't. Going to production pay, I think what people get scared of is like it feels like a game, and you're trading the game of hours for a different game. The question is it a better game?
Mhm.
And ultimately, the more agency that a person feels like they have over the projects they have and the way they're priced and all that stuff, the more they're in control of their own fate. But if it's me, I could see being frustrated when it's like the hand of God is giving me projects that may or may not be good projects and I didn't price them myself. Like, how do we give the people that are involved in that process as much agency as possible to feel like it truly is? It was them that either dictated that success and they're not just kind of beholden to whatever kind of projects they get passed.
Yeah, so we kind of roundtable a lot of our projects together. I mean, there's certain people I can already kind of point that I think they're going to be a good fit, just kind of culturally with the client, or just relationship with the client. Just like, some people are a little more suit and tie buttoned up, some people are more casual, and I can kind of feel out the team who might fit well with the client. But to your point, is we kind of get the team in, and we try to evaluate, like, is this priced accordingly based on this. So it's not just me arbitrarily just assigning the price, and then the team is involved with the pricing package. And then as we move into year 2, 3, and beyond, the team is going to do those renewals. And I think you've talked about those. All of a sudden, the notes and all of the data and all of the ideas and all of the headaches and frustrations get really, really put under a microscope whenever the team that knows they're going to get paid on this project are ultimately going to be re-engaging on this project. In some cases, we may not re-engage. In some cases, there may be a big price increase. But if we're delivering value, it shouldn't matter at the same time. So there will be agency for that in years 2, 3, 4, and beyond. And to another point is, if they want to bring in their own clients, it also gives agency on trying to
Mm.
build out their own book of business or their own client listing. And so we give a 10% bonus on any new client for first year billable fees. We give a 10% bonus. If someone comes in on 10,000 a year, they pay 10,000, they'll give another 10% bonus on top of the production if you worked on the client. So really, I mean, if you think about it from a 40%, my biggest fear is that it might be too high at a certain point. And that's my biggest fear, is I may have to adjust that percentage down. I'm not as worried about net write-ups and write-downs. I'm more worried about making sure, because, if they were to go out and do their own thing, 40% margin at an accounting firm is not too bad. A good accounting firm being 50% profit, 40% ain't too shabby for not having any of the headache or heartache that goes along with running the thing. But, I really want people to treat this as if it's their own business within the business. So, yeah, we have this where, this will ultimately foster partner relationships. This will foster people wanting to move up. This will foster people wanting to get clients and have these types of things on their own. And really what I want to try to do is I want to try to build out better professionals. And if I can be along the ride with them, then that's just great. And if they stay forever, that's fantastic. But I know they'll be better equipped to go out into the marketplace by just kind of having to do this rather than just being assigned work and just billing, just putting hours down on a timesheet, doing kind of, I don't know, hamster wheel type work. That's just the way I feel about it.
Do you think there's a version of this? You told me before you hit record, you spent time at a regional firm in the
Mhm.
past. Do you think there's a version of this that works, that plays nicely in like the larger firm sandbox that would have been appealing to a personality like yours?
I never went to a large firm, so I've kind of always stayed regional and smaller. So it's hard to know. I have talked with friends, and frankly, we've benefited from the larger firm burnout because they were doing work that didn't seem equitable. It didn't seem like they had any agency. So it's hard to know. And to be honest with you, I'd have to know more about like the staff relationship, because the thing that we haven't tackled with this yet that I'm still trying to navigate is, what is offshoring or potentially, remote work come into play with this? How, do you treat them the same way, or is it different? Because obviously the margins are significantly different. In a big firm environment, I'm not sure if it'll work. If it's 20 people or less, perhaps. But I think the partners, like you said, like the partner that you said did all sorts of quirky things with write-ups. I've seen that happen as well. You're kind of the fate is in the whoever holds the pen. And I'm just not sure ego or greed or certain things that go along with that doing the billable doing the billing work, and oh, I deserve this write up, or it's my client, I get it. I'm not sure it'll ever work at a larger firm level. I'd love to think it could if it were just transparent. So like, my staff they can run all the reports. It's not hidden behind an iron gate. They can run the reports to see where they got written up and written down. And frankly, if I have to write them down, I'll go tell them I had to write them down so they knew. So it's not a surprise, because that happened to me as a staff. Why did I get written down on this? There's no way. There's no way I got written down. Oh, it's just so that someone else can get written up. But why? I've seen that. I've seen it happen. And so, we're kind of really, really an open book. They can run the reports, they can see the data, and we're trying to be fair with it across the board. I don't know. I'm not sure if it can happen at a bigger firm, but I'm not the right person to probably give a real answer for it. But I'd love to talk to somebody about it.
This episode is sponsored in part by Ignition. Come. Here's the thing about client billing. You can't bill for the time you spend billing. You can't. It is pure waste. And we're bad at billing because it's icky. You let things slide, you don't get paid. You waste time chasing people for money. That's not what I did. I didn't want to waste time chasing them, and so I just eat it. Don't do that. This is where Ignition comes in, the leading revenue generation platform for accountants and professional services. When I was running my firm, Ignition wiped out our AR, it's true, and significantly reduced the time spent billing clients, saving our partners over 1,000 hours in the first year, because they didn't have to bill all that stuff manually, man. With Ignition, we won more business with impressive online proposals. No more hustling PDFs and Word docs. We automatically pulled payment up front or at the end of a job when it was done. No more dialing for dollars. We transitioned our firm to more recurring revenue and better managed scope creep. No more leaving money on the table. Ignition is making thousands of firms more money and genuinely made us more profitable. Check out why over 7,000 of the smartest businesses run on Ignition at ignitionapp.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. Gang, this episode is sponsored in part by Carbon, the practice management system. I'll tell you one thing I like that Carbon does is they tell you what they're building. In fact, at the end of the year, they announced, here's all the stuff we're really cranking off for 2025. Let me run you through some of them. 1, Carbon for Clients, a vastly upgraded portal experience. Thank you, that is so important. Custom branding. There is such a long list here. Let's just say a vastly better client portal experience. Engagements, nice. Proposals, agreements, automatic billing, which they already have. They already have some automatic billing, but I think they're just beefing up proposals and engagements. Google Drive integration, SharePoint integration. Quick replies, suggested short replies to emails. Oh, now in beta. Yeah, buddy, I think that's AI. Email refiner. Okay, more AI email stuff, I like it. Client segments, e-signature with KBA, API enhancements, new reporting dashboards. Can I pick what I'm most excited about? Probably the upgraded client portal and the improvements to the email experience. Email is so time consuming. If there's one thing that Carbon absolutely crushes, I think still does better than anybody else, it is the email experience. And we spend so much time on email, so that matters, okay? Learn more about Carbon, check out the link down in the old show notes. You know what they're called. One element that's been hard as we've talked with other folks is how you fairly shift stuff around when you bring somebody into the team. And that's got to be particularly, I don't know if painful is the right word, but challenging the fewer team members you have, because you don't have as many people to sort of shuffle projects across. So you hire a new person. How do you do that in a way that isn't like a bit of a rug pull if you're having to move projects from somebody else?
Well, luckily, with a lot of our work, there's still multiple points. So even though there still the existing staff may stay as kind of the client relationship manager there, there's still a lot of different levels of that engagement. So, with advisory work with us, there's the scoping of the engagement, there's designing the tax planning, there's implementing the tax planning, and then there's monitoring the tax planning for us. Each one of us, to us, that's happening quarterly. We're doing all of that. So inevitably, if a new staff person comes in, that may mean that we're giving them design work, or we're giving them implementing work, or we're giving them, typically not monitoring right away. But, if we're billing quarterly with our clients and we're doing work quarterly, yeah, up front, they're going to do some work that's going to take longer, but there's still a lot of work there. But then they're going to end up monitoring that engagement. We all know that the lift on the monitoring is typically a lot less overall. So they're going to get made up for it. But you've got to a point, you've got to start somewhere with it. So, but inevitably, if someone came in 100% ready, could start everything day one, was completely up to speed, we'd be giving them client engagements to run full circle. But for those that kind of have to come in and kind of learn underneath, but there's multiple levels. So inevitably, they're still going to get a lot of value out of getting that lower level work because it's going to help build upon the foundation to run the next engagement. And then we also were tracking our clients too, like in terms of like how we internally see them. Within like we kind of have categories, levels of difficulty, levels of complexity. Is this a one entity, two entity client, or is this a multiple 5 company client with a big medical service organization? So we take that into consideration too, and we try to outline because we still have, based on our tax plan and based on the advisory work that we're doing, we still have a scope of work within a relatively reasonable hour range from a budget standpoint. So we're realizing if someone's always getting the 40-hour a year budgets, and this person's only getting the tens, then that might not be, really fair across the board. So we do try to divide and conquer that way. But new clients are coming in so much, inevitably. So if you got kind of a raw deal, then honestly, you're going to end up getting the next client and the next client and the next client because the capacity is not there for somebody else. So there is a level of trust that kind of falls on me as kind of the person who's at least quarterbacking it for right now. But I'm really open with the staff. I'm really open with making sure they're feeling like they're not overwhelmed, making sure they're not underwhelmed. That's half my biggest problem right now is I'm making sure they're not bored and they're just like, no, are you kidding me? No, there's plenty of work to do. But that's honestly my biggest fear is that there's not they're not being challenged.
Mm.
And so luckily I've been fortunate with that. And so, I think that comes into finding the right people to fit within the culture instead of just trying to put bodies in the seats.
You mentioned, or you said in passing earlier, the normal 80-hour weeks. Did you mean 40-hour weeks, or is that a tax season
Yeah,
thing?
I meant
Okay.
80-hour payroll. I meant 80-hour biweekly on this. We
Gotcha,
were
gotcha.
talking
Okay.
salary, and I just meant biweekly
Okay.
payroll. Yeah, no, 40 hours a week. That's the expectation.
No, somebody in the comments was going to set you on fire for that. Does everybody, I mean, not everybody turns up. I think there's actually an argument for production pay. Not everybody turns up with the same enthusiasm to work X number of hours. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, in my 20s, I would have just been playing video games if I wasn't working. So I should have been working a
Yeah.
lot. Then I had kids, and that calculation changes. Is there flexibility there, or is the default still 40 hours? Like for that person who is underwhelmed, can they work more if they want to?
My expectation's 40 hours. I don't want to ask you to stay late and I don't want to ask you to work weekends. I think there's a little level of grace that sometimes if the project calls for it, we'll all rise to the occasion. But to your point, yeah, if somebody wants more, if they're at a different station and they want to go out and they've got plenty of, hey, I don't mind this. I can stay late and do more work. Hand it to me. I'll assign it to them 100%. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll take it away from somebody to give it to them, but that means I'll feed that person more work. There definitely is discretion on that. It's up to them. Everybody knows my direction is like what the base expectation is. I tell my staff I never ever want this to come between your family. I'll never make you choose between work and family or work and life events or work and any thing like that. I've been there, done that. I've been burnt out and picked back up, caught on fire and risen back up. So part of it's just us. Like we don't want to burn anybody out, but if somebody wants more, if they're underwhelmed and they want to go out and find more, absolutely. And I'll foster the heck out of that as much as possible. If they want to go join networking groups, peer groups, if there's something that we can do as a firm to help kind of do that, I'm happy to do that. That just shows me that someone's trying, and I'll 100% back that. So yeah, no, if someone wants to work overtime, someone wants to do that, then go for it. I'll have that person all day. And there is a level of that. Some people definitely know. But I think with that comes the idea that like you kind of earn a lot more grace on the back end too. You can go for a 2-week vacation. So our tax manager over Thanksgiving went to see the Northern Lights, was gone for 2 weeks in Norway. That same manager went to the Paris Olympics
Mhm.
over the summer. She's missed 6, 7 weeks in the past year on vacation and stuff like that. Does it matter? Nope. Do I care? Not really. Yeah, I had to pick up a little bit of extra slack on the in the meantime, just because of like a little bit of making sure I'm monitoring a few communications. But that's not a big deal. I'm happy to do it because she's crushing it. And then likewise, I did the same thing and I went to Disney World last week. So, it's like, my team will pick me up whenever I need to as well. So I think it's just I've been a sports guy my whole life. I've been a team person my whole life. To me, it's the idea that you can go faster alone but further together. It's so cliche, but it means a lot to us. And so I think if we have the right mentality as a group, I think we all kind of pick each other up. And I've seen it happen with staff too. I've seen staff get overwhelmed because they're slogging through a project and someone else will come in there, where can I pick you up? And so I think that's just that can't happen everywhere. I've been fortunate. It's worked out really well thus far, but I hope to kind of keep cultivating that too where possible. As as cliche as that sounds, but it does matter.
Any other questions I should have asked or gotchas for folks in a situation like yours thinking about doing this they need to look out for?
Questions we should have asked. One, I think this works as long as you already have a very good operational front. So there's so many things with process improvement, making sure your billing structure is correct. I'm on version 5 plus of how we bill clients, from upfront pay to retainer based to value based, whatever it is. So I do think that matters. You got to have billing, you got to have your revenues, you got to have some of your processes in place. You got to have your tracking. I've shot PMs just because of their ability to track these types of things. So I'm a little new. I'm a little unique in that standpoint because the workflows are important, but to me, the tracking and the data is also important. So I think a firm has to have their revenue locked in. I think they have to have the way they bill their clients and the way they work with their clients. It has to be locked in. Margins should be good, because if they're already operating on a 30% margin or a 40% margin, this is not going to work very well for them, or they're going to have to change their calculation in a different way. So I do think that's important. One, I think the idea of if you do this and you try to keep it really close to the chest, I do think that could lead to some disgruntledness, or it could lead to just a lack of transparency. So I do think someone has to be willing to be more transparent, maybe be vulnerable to a certain degree. Maybe that's hard at like a partner level, or the boss level, or whatever it is. To pretend you know all the answers and pretend that you have this thing completely right. I do think there's a level of vulnerability, which I think is reciprocated well, in some cases with clients, or with staff, excuse me, just because it's so fluid. But no, I think those are a couple of things that I've just tried to realize, that just understand that there's grace on both sides. But really, this wasn't possible until we kind of locked in on a certain, like, we really know what our core engagements need to look like. We know what our minimums need to be. We know the work that we do and the value that we're bringing, and how we're able to provide it for the clients, and how we do it kind of differently, and the client experience, being kind of top notch. I feel like if you're catering to kind of the top of the market, or that level, that boutique client that wants that level of service, this is what we're going to give you. And as long as we're pricing those right, and then the client, and then all the work seems to kind of take care of itself, kind of going backwards from that. And luckily, I saw the bad side of this at my previous firm. Even at the partner level, I didn't love how it worked, because at the end of the day, staffs were never getting bonuses. They were never getting increases in their base pay. Like, they were never even getting cost of living adjustments, because it was all based on this calculation. But the calculation was manipulated, and it was unfortunately, it wasn't uniformly assessed across the board. There was favoritism, or there was greed, or there was ego, or there was something in there that kind of got in the way. So I do think there's a level of transparency, vulnerability, and just openness that you have to be willing to at least show the staff. And if you give them that, then I think they have agency, and I think they have the ability to feel like this is part of them too, which helps them kind of grow within the firm. And so I'm really just trying to cultivate people who we're all growing together. And if we're moving up market together and getting better as professionals, then I think inevitably it's going to, so far it's taken it has worked out. I'm just leaning into that, at a certain point, but until I'm wrong, then I'll reevaluate it, I'll be honest.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I forgot to ask you beforehand. Anything we should promote for you? Where should we point people, if anywhere?
MyersCPA.com. Ultimately, you can find me on LinkedIn. So we really like reaching out. I really love talking with colleagues, really like talking with all this kind of stuff like that. Ultimately, our website and across the board, I don't know, that's about it, man. You can find me online.
Yeah, I'll throw it to you at, I don't know, LinkedIn or your website, whatever makes most sense. Well, thanks for coming on. Anybody wants to, I don't know, pick your brain or connect or learn more about you, where should we send them?
Yes, I'm pretty sarcastic on LinkedIn, so reach out to me there. Most of the time, I think people don't realize how sarcastic I am, but no, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect, find a way to chat offline if we can see each other at conferences or whatever. Our website, myerscpa.com. You got to spell the name kind of funky. Myres, if you want to spell it correctly. But no, you can find us online for clients that are looking. But as far as like colleagues and other firm owners, reach out to me on LinkedIn, message me. We can touch base offline. I'd love chatting. I love kind of picking each other's brains and seeing where we're all at.
Okay, we'll drop those down in the show notes too. Thanks for doing this, man.
Cool, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Thank you.